The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest, but I kept my face steady as granite. Vanessa didn't even look up from her salmon when she said it. My family will always come first, Jack. Your second priority, maybe third. I set down my fork with deliberate care, the metal clicking against the ceramic plate in our suddenly silent dining room. The chandelier cast harsh shadows across her perfectly made-up face, and I wondered when exactly my wife had transformed into this cold stranger sitting across from me. Good to know where I stand, I said, my voice carrying just enough edge to let her know the message had been received loud and clear. Riley, our 17-year-old daughter, snorted from her end of the table. Guess you'll just have to get used to being a loser, Dad. She didn't even glance up from her phone, thumb scrolling through whatever social media disaster was consuming her attention this week. The dining room fell into that special kind of silence that only comes when a family implodes. Outside our Edgewater home, I could hear Mrs. Grady's dog barking at shadows again. The old neighborhood was full of sounds like that. Things that used to matter, now just background noise to bigger problems. I pushed back from the table, chair legs scraping against hardwood floors that I'd installed myself 3 summers ago. Back when Vanessa still smiled at me occasionally. Back when Riley called me Daddy instead of treating me like an inconvenience. Where are you going? Vanessa asked, finally looking up. Her green eyes held about as much warmth as Lake Erie in January. To check on some things, I said. Third-place priorities, you understand? I walked upstairs to my home office, a converted bedroom that Vanessa had grudgingly allowed me to claim. The walls were lined with construction trade magazines and a few trophies from my amateur boxing days, back when I still believed hard work and determination could win you anything. Settling into my desk chair, I opened my laptop and stared at the screen for a long moment, then I started typing. First, a new checking account at First National, then a savings account at the credit union across town. I moved carefully, methodically, like I was planning a construction project. Foundation first, then the framework, then the details that would make everything solid. My construction business, Dorsey Built, had been struggling lately. Not failing exactly, but Edgewater wasn't the booming industrial town it used to be. Half the factories had closed, taking their workers and their home renovation budgets with them. But I'd been careful with money, more careful than Vanessa knew. While she spent her real estate commissions on designer handbags and spa weekends with her mother, I'd been squirreling away cash in places she'd never think to look. Tool expenses that were actually investments. Business lunches that were actually meetings with financial advisors. If I was third place in this family, maybe it was time to start my own race. I opened a new browser window and started researching apartment rentals. Nothing fancy. I wasn't Vanessa. Just something clean and quiet where a man could think without being reminded every 5 minutes that he wasn't good enough. A soft knock interrupted my planning. "Come in," I called, minimizing the browser windows. Riley stood in the doorway, phone still clutched in her hand like a security blanket. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to help me build birdhouses in the garage. "Dad, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I said gently. "And that's okay. You're 17. Being cruel to your parents is practically a requirement." She shifted uncomfortably. "Mom says you've been acting weird lately." "Your mother notices a lot of things." I leaned back in my chair, studying my daughter's face. She had Vanessa's sharp features, but my stubborn chin. "What do you think?" "I think—" She hesitated, then shrugged. "I think maybe you should fight back for once." Before I could respond, she was gone, leaving me alone with the hum of my computer and the weight of her words. Fight back. Interesting advice from someone who'd just called me a loser. I reopened the browser windows and continued my research. By midnight, I had 3 new accounts, a list of potential apartments, and the beginning of what you might call a strategy. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next morning, Vanessa was already gone when I came downstairs. Her coffee mug sat in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim like evidence of a crime. A note on the counter informed me she'd be showing houses all day and would grab dinner with her mother. Riley had left for school without saying goodbye, which was pretty much standard operating procedure these days. I made my own coffee and sat at the kitchen table, looking out at the backyard I'd landscaped myself. The maple tree was starting to turn, early October painting its leaves in shades of gold and red. Beautiful, but temporary, like most things, apparently. My phone buzzed with a text from Danny Kowalski, my oldest friend and sometimes business partner. "Coffee at Mace's? Got some work lined up." I texted back, "Be there in 20. Mace's place wasn't much to look at, a combination boxing gym and coffee shop in a converted warehouse near the lake. Mace Torino had opened it after his professional fighting career ended with a torn rotator cuff and too many concussions. Now he served decent coffee to morning regulars and trained local kids who still believed they could punch their way out of Edgewater. I'd been training there since my divorce from competitive boxing 15 years ago. Not seriously, just enough to keep my hands quick and my head clear. Mace always said the gym was the last place a man could still be king of something, even if it was just a heavy bag and his own demons. Danny was already there when I arrived, nursing a black coffee and scrolling through his phone. At 42, he looked older than me, gray creeping through his brown hair and lines around his eyes from too many years squinting at blueprints in harsh sunlight. "You look terrible," he said by way of greeting. "Thanks. You're a real confidence booster." "I'm serious, Jack. When's the last time you slept?" I slid into the booth across from him. "About as well as you'd expect." Mace appeared at our table without being summoned, coffee pot in one hand and a knowing look on his weathered face. He was pushing 70, but still moved like he could go 3 rounds if necessary. "The usual?" he asked, already pouring. "Make it a double," I said. Mace raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. He'd been around long enough to recognize when a man was working through something. "So, what's this about work?" I asked Danny once Mace had retreated behind the counter. "Kitchen renovation out in Lakewood. Rich couple wants the full treatment. Custom cabinets, granite countertops, the works. 3-week job, good money." "Sounds perfect." I meant it. Nothing cleared the head like honest work, and I could use the distraction. "There's one catch," Danny said. "They want to start Monday, as in this Monday. That's 4 days from now." "I know it's short notice, but I'll take it," I said. "Whatever it pays, I'll take it." Danny studied my face. "Everything okay at home?" I took a long sip of coffee, buying time to consider my answer. Danny had been married to the same woman for 20 years, had 3 kids who still seemed to like him, lived in a house where people said good morning to each other. "Vanessa thinks her family should come first," I said finally. "Before what?" "Before me, before us, before anything that doesn't have her maiden name attached to it." Danny winced. "That's rough, man." "The roughest part is, she's probably right. I've been so focused on trying to fit into their world that I forgot I used to have my own." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Mace train a kid who couldn't have been more than 16. The boy was all elbows and enthusiasm, throwing wild haymakers at a heavy bag that barely moved. "You know what your problem is?" Danny said eventually. "I'm sure you're going to tell me." "You're too nice. Always have been. You let people walk all over you because you think that's what good guys do." "And what should good guys do?" "Fight back," Danny said. "Not with fists, necessarily, but fight back." There was that phrase again, fight back. Maybe the universe was trying to tell me something. My phone buzzed with a text message. "Vanessa, working late tonight. Don't wait up." I showed the message to Danny, who shook his head in disgust. "How often does she work late these days?" he asked. 3-4 times a week, sometimes more." "And you believe she's actually working?" The question hung in the air like smoke from Mace's ancient coffee machine. I wanted to say yes, of course I believed my wife, but the truth was I'd stopped believing a lot of things lately. "I don't know what I believe anymore," I admitted. Danny leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Jack, I'm going to say something, and you're not going to like it. Go ahead. When's the last time Vanessa acted like she was happy to see you? Not polite, not civil, actually happy." I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "That's what I thought," Danny said softly. I finished my coffee and stood up. "I should get going. Got some errands to run." "Jack." Danny caught my arm as I passed his chair. "Whatever you're thinking about doing, be smart about it." "What makes you think I'm thinking about doing anything?" "Because I know you, and I know that look." I left Mace's place with Danny's words echoing in my head and a strange sense of clarity settling over me like morning fog. For the first time in months, maybe years, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The question wasn't whether I should fight back. The question was how. I spent the rest of Thursday driving around Edgewater, reacquainting myself with a town I'd lived in for 20 years but somehow stopped seeing. The old steel mill sat empty and rusting by the lake, its smokestacks reaching toward gray October clouds like the fingers of a corpse. Downtown, half the storefronts were vacant, their windows covered with newspaper or painted over with optimistic "coming soon" signs that had been there so long they'd started to fade. But there were signs of life, too. New restaurants catering to young professionals who couldn't afford Cleveland proper, art galleries and converted warehouses, a farmer's market that actually seemed to draw crowds. Edgewater was changing, evolving, trying to figure out what it wanted to be now that the industrial age had moved on. Kind of like me, I supposed. I parked outside Vanessa's real estate office, a sleek glass and brick building that looked like it belonged in a much more prosperous city. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see her at her desk, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing animatedly with her free hand. She looked beautiful and successful and completely absorbed in whatever deal she was working. She also looked like a stranger. I didn't go in. Instead, I sat in my truck and watched her for 20 minutes, trying to remember when I'd stopped being part of her world. When had we stopped talking about our days over dinner? When had she stopped asking about my work, my thoughts, my dreams? When had I become furniture in my own marriage? My phone rang, startling me out of my brooding. Riley's name appeared on the screen. "Hey, kiddo, what's up?" "Dad, I need you to pick me up from school. My car won't start." "What's wrong with it?" "I don't know. It just makes this clicking noise when I turn the key." "Sounds like the battery. I'll be there in 15 minutes. "Thanks. And Dad?" "Yeah?" "I'm sorry about what I said last night. That was mean?" "Apology accepted. We'll talk when I get there." I drove to Edgewater High, a sprawling brick complex that had been built in the optimistic 1960s when the town still believed in its future. Riley was waiting by the main entrance, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking more like her old self than she had in months. "Thanks for coming," she said as she climbed into the passenger seat. "That's what dads are for, even third-place dads." She winced. "I really am sorry about that." "Don't be. You were honest. I respect honesty." We drove in silence for a while, past the neighborhoods where I'd built additions and installed kitchens, where I'd helped families create homes that would outlast their marriages and their children's childhoods. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "Are you and Mom going to get divorced?" The question hit me like a sucker punch, but I kept my voice steady. "What makes you ask that?" "You guys barely talk anymore. When you do, it's like you're reading from a script. And Mom..." She trailed off. "Mom what?" "She's been different lately, distracted. She spends a lot of time on her phone, texting people, and she's been working really late. Your mother works hard. That's one of the things I've always admired about her." "Dad." Riley's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm 17, not 7. I know when adults are lying to themselves." We'd reached the house. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine, but neither of us moved to get out. "To answer your question," I said finally, "I don't know what's going to happen with your mother and me, but whatever does happen, it won't be your fault, and we'll both still love you. That part will never change." Riley nodded, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "I know, I remember when you guys used to laugh together, when you'd dance in the kitchen while making breakfast on Sundays, when you looked at each other like you were sharing some secret joke. I remember that too. What happened? Life happened. People change. Sometimes they change in different directions. That's really sad." "Yeah," I said. "It is." That evening, Vanessa came home at nearly 10 o'clock, claiming she'd been showing houses to a client who could only meet after work. She looked tired but satisfied, the way she used to look after we'd spent a long day working in the garden together. "How was your day?" she asked, the question automatic and perfunctory. "Fine. Riley's car battery is going. I'll replace it tomorrow." "Good. Thanks for handling that." She disappeared upstairs to shower and change, and I found myself alone in the living room with my laptop and a growing sense of inevitability. I opened a new browser window and typed in the name of a private investigator I'd heard Danny mention once. The website was professional, but not flashy, promising discretion and results. I stared at the contact form for a long time before closing the window without filling it out. Not yet. I wasn't ready for that level of certainty. Instead, I opened Vanessa's laptop, which she'd left on the kitchen counter. We'd always shared passwords, back when we shared everything else. Her email was still logged in. I told myself I was just checking our joint accounts, making sure there were no surprises. But my eyes kept drifting to her text messages, her recent calls, her browser history, real estate websites, restaurant reviews, a few shopping sites. Nothing suspicious, nothing that couldn't be explained by legitimate business or personal interests. Then I found the hotel receipt. It was buried in her downloads folder, a PDF confirmation for a room at the Lakewood Inn, last Tuesday night, the same night she'd claimed to be showing houses until nearly midnight. The room was registered to V. Dorsey and guest. I stared at the screen until the words blurred together, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Part of me wanted to slam the laptop shut, pretend I'd never seen it, go back to the comfortable delusion that my marriage was just going through a rough patch. but a larger part of me, a part that had been growing stronger over the past few weeks, wanted to know everything. I forwarded the receipt to my personal email, then cleared the browser history and closed the laptop. When Vanessa came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair damp from her shower and wearing the silk pajamas I'd given her for Christmas, I was reading a construction magazine and sipping a beer. "You're up late," she said. "Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd catch up on some reading." She kissed the top of my head, a gesture so familiar and automatic that it felt like muscle memory. "Don't stay up too much longer." "I won't." But I did stay up, long after I heard her breathing settle into the rhythm of sleep. I sat in my office, staring at that hotel receipt and trying to decide what kind of man I wanted to be. The kind who pretended not to know, the kind who confronted his wife with accusations and demands for explanations, or the kind who gathered information first, who planned his next moves carefully and deliberately. By 3 a.m, I'd made my decision. I was going to be the kind of man who fought back. Friday morning brought rain and the kind of gray October light that made everything look like a noir film. Vanessa left early for a breakfast meeting with a potential client, kissing me goodbye with lips that tasted like coffee and lies. Riley had already caught a ride to school with a friend, leaving me alone in a house that suddenly felt too big and too quiet. I made coffee and toast, ate standing at the kitchen counter while rain drummed against the windows. Then I got dressed and drove to the Lakewood Inn. It was the kind of place that catered to business travelers and people having affairs. Clean, anonymous, with a parking lot designed to hide license plates from prying eyes. The desk clerk was a tired-looking woman in her 50s who probably saw more than she wanted to and said less than she knew. "I think my wife left her earrings in one of your rooms earlier this week," I said, showing her a photo of Vanessa on my phone. "Tuesday night, I believe. Room was registered under Dorsey." The woman glanced at the photo, then at her computer screen. "I remember her. Pretty lady. She was with a gentleman." "That would be her business partner. Tall guy, dark hair." "That's him. Very friendly. They seemed close. They've been working together for years. Can you tell me what room they were in? I'd like to call and ask housekeeping to check for the earrings." The woman hesitated, clearly weighing hotel policy against customer service. Customer service 1. "Room 237, but housekeeping would have found any jewelry and turned it into lost and found. We're very thorough." "Of course. I just thought I'd check." I thanked her and left, my hands shaking slightly as I climbed back into my truck. The confirmation was both a relief and a devastation. Relief because uncertainty is its own special torture. Devastation because hope, even false hope, dies hard. My phone buzzed with a text from Danny. "Still on for the Lakewood job Monday?" I texted back, "Absolutely. Need the distraction." "Everything okay?" "Getting better," I typed, and realized I actually meant it. I was done being third place in my own life. I was done being furniture in my own marriage. I was done being the kind of man who accepted whatever scraps of attention and affection his family decided to throw his way. It was time to start being the kind of man who took control of his own story. The question was, what kind of story did I want to tell? The weekend passed in a haze of forced normalcy. Vanessa worked on Saturday, claimed she needed to catch up on paperwork on Sunday. Riley spent most of her time at friends' houses or locked in her room, emerging only for meals and to ask for money. I replaced the battery in Riley's car, mowed the lawn one last time before winter, and pretended to watch football while actually researching divorce attorneys and property law. The house felt like a stage set, where we were all playing roles we'd grown tired of, but didn't know how to abandon. Monday morning brought the blessed relief of honest work. Danny and I arrived at the Lakewood job site at 7 sharp, our trucks loaded with tools and the kind of focused energy that comes from having a clear purpose. The clients were exactly what you'd expect from Lakewood. Young professionals with more money than patience. The kind of people who wanted everything done yesterday and perfect the first time. The husband, Brad, worked in finance downtown. The wife, Jessica, was a marketing executive who'd taken the week off to supervise the renovation. "We want it to look like something from a magazine," Jessica explained as she showed us through their current kitchen, a perfectly functional space that they'd decided was hopelessly outdated. "Something that says, successful but not trying too hard, you know?" I nodded and took measurements while Danny discussed timelines and materials. After 15 years in construction, I'd learned to translate client speak into actual requirements. Successful but not trying too hard meant expensive but understated. It meant quality materials installed with precision, clean lines that would photograph well for their social media posts. It meant exactly the kind of work I was good at. "This is going to be beautiful," I told Jessica, and meant it. Whatever chaos was happening in my personal life, I could still build things that would last. We spent the morning demolishing the old kitchen, a process that was both destructive and oddly therapeutic. There's something satisfying about tearing down walls with a sledgehammer when your own life feels like it's crumbling around you. During lunch break, I checked my phone and found 3 missed calls from Vanessa. No messages. I called her back. "Where have you been?" she demanded without preamble. "I've been trying to reach you for an hour." "Working, that thing I do to pay the bills. What's wrong?" "My mother wants to have dinner tonight. Family meeting." "About what?" "About us. About our marriage. Riley told her we've been having problems." I closed my eyes and counted to 5. Margaret Thornton, Vanessa's mother, was a force of nature who'd never thought I was good enough for her daughter. The feeling was mutual, but I'd kept that opinion to myself for the sake of family harmony. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "That we're working through some issues, that it's none of her business." "And she accepted that?" "Of course not. She wants to help." Margaret's version of help usually involved explaining all the ways I was failing as a husband, father, and provider. It was exactly what I needed after discovering my wife was having an affair. "What time?" I asked. 7, at their house." "I'll be there." "Jack." Vanessa's voice softened slightly. "We need to present a united front tonight. Whatever problems we're having, we can't let my parents think our marriage is in trouble." "Why not? It is in trouble." "Because they'll interfere. You know how they get." "Right. Can't have them interfering with your other priorities." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I'll see you at 7. I hung up and stared at my phone for a long moment. Danny appeared beside me, sandwich in hand and concern on his face. "Bad news?" "Dinner with the in-laws tonight. Command performance." "Ouch. What's the occasion?" "Apparently Riley told her grandmother that Vanessa and I are having problems. Now Margaret wants to fix our marriage." Danny nearly choked on his sandwich. "Margaret Thornton wants to fix your marriage? The woman who spent your entire wedding reception telling people you weren't good enough for her daughter?" "The very same. This should be interesting." That's one word for it. We spent the afternoon installing the new electrical rough-in for the kitchen, work that required focus and precision. It was exactly what I needed, a problem I could actually solve, a project where my skills mattered and my efforts would be appreciated. By 5 o'clock, we'd made excellent progress. The clients were happy, the work was solid, and I felt more like myself than I had in weeks. Then I had to go home and pretend my marriage wasn't falling apart. The Thornton house sat on 3 acres of perfectly manicured lawn in Edgewater's most exclusive neighborhood. It was a colonial revival that Margaret had decorated with the kind of aggressive good taste that made guests afraid to sit down. Vanessa's car was already in the driveway when I arrived. Through the front windows, I could see her in the living room with her parents, all 3 of them looking serious and concerned. I sat in my truck for a moment, gathering my thoughts and my patience. Then I walked up the front steps and rang the doorbell. Margaret answered, resplendent in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. At 68, she was still beautiful in the way that money and good genes can maintain, her silver hair perfectly styled and her makeup flawless. "Jack," she said, offering her cheek for a kiss. "Thank you for coming." "Margaret, you look lovely, as always." "Come in." We're all in the living room. The living room was a monument to understated elegance. Antique furniture, original oil paintings, fresh flowers arranged with professional precision. Robert Thornton sat in his leather chair like a king holding court, while Vanessa perched on the edge of the sofa looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Jack," Robert stood and offered his hand. "Good to see you." "Robert, thanks for having me." We shook hands with the kind of firm grip that men use to take each other's measure. Robert had built a successful accounting firm from nothing, and he had the confidence of someone who'd won more battles than he'd lost. I respected that, even when I disagreed with his methods. "Sit down," Margaret said, gesturing to the chair across from Vanessa. "Can I get you something to drink?" "Coffee would be great." She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving the 3 of us in awkward silence. Vanessa stared at her hands while Robert studied me with the intensity of an accountant reviewing a suspicious tax return. "So," he said finally, "Riley seems to think you and Vanessa are having some difficulties." "All couples have difficulties," I said carefully. "It's how you work through them that matters." "Of course, but some difficulties are more serious than others." Margaret returned with coffee service on a silver tray, the kind of formal presentation that made even casual conversation feel like a negotiation. She poured coffee into delicate china cups that looked like they'd shatter if you looked at them wrong. "Now then," she said, settling into her chair with the air of someone calling a meeting to order. "Let's talk about what's really going on." Vanessa finally looked up. "Mom, I told you, we're just going through a rough patch. Every marriage has them." "Some marriages do," Margaret said. Strong marriages weather those patches and come out stronger. Weak marriages... She let the implication hang in the air. What exactly are you suggesting? I asked. I'm suggesting that marriage requires work, compromise, sacrifice. Both partners have to be willing to put the relationship first. Before what? Before individual desires, before pride, before the temptation to look elsewhere for what should be found at home. The words hit like a slap, and I wondered if Margaret somehow knew about the hotel receipt. But her gaze was fixed on me, not Vanessa, and I realized she was talking about my supposed failings, not her daughter's actual ones. I've always put my family first, I said quietly. Have you? Because from where I sit, it looks like you've been putting your little construction business ahead of your wife's needs. My little construction business pays for this family's lifestyle. Barely. Vanessa makes twice what you do, and she has real potential for advancement. But she can't focus on her career when she's worried about your struggles. I felt my temper rising, but kept my voice level. What struggles would those be? The business problems, the financial stress, the way you've been pulling away from family obligations. What family obligations have I been pulling away from? Margaret waved her hand dismissively. You know what I mean. Social events, church, the country club membership we offered to sponsor. I don't golf, Margaret, and I work Sundays sometimes. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Priorities, Jack. A successful marriage requires both partners to make sacrifices for the greater good. I looked at Vanessa, waiting for her to defend me, or at least acknowledge that her mother was being unreasonable. Instead, she sat in silence, studying her coffee cup like it held the secrets of the universe. You're right, I said finally. Marriage does require sacrifice. The question is whether both partners are making them. What's that supposed to mean? Robert asked. It means that sacrifice should be mutual. It means that when someone puts their family first, that gesture should be reciprocated, not taken for granted. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting that Vanessa hasn't been a good wife? I'm suggesting that marriage is a partnership, not a hierarchy, and partnerships work best when both people feel valued and respected. Respect is earned, Jack. It's not given automatically. You're absolutely right. It is earned, and it can be lost. The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret looked like I'd blasphemed in church. Robert frowned with the expression of someone trying to solve a complicated equation. And Vanessa finally looked up, her eyes wide with something that might have been fear. I think, she said carefully, that we should probably head home. It's been a long day. Of course, Margaret said, her voice arctic. But I hope you'll both think about what we've discussed tonight. Marriage isn't a game, and it's not something you can just walk away from when it becomes inconvenient. No, I agreed, standing up. It's not. We said our goodbyes with the kind of strained politeness that follows an argument nobody wanted to have. During the drive home, Vanessa and I didn't speak until we were pulling into our driveway. That was a disaster, she said. Was it? I thought it was pretty enlightening. You basically told my parents that I don't respect you. Do you? She turned to stare at me. What kind of question is that? An honest one. Do you respect me, Vanessa? Do you value what I bring to this marriage? Do you see me as an equal partner or just as someone who pays half the bills and takes care of the things you don't want to deal with? I can't believe you're asking me this. I can't believe I had to. We sat in the car, engine ticking as it cooled, both of us staring straight ahead at the garage door I'd installed myself 3 years ago. Jack, Vanessa said finally, I think we need to talk. Really talk. About what? About us. About what we want. About whether we still want the same things. Okay, when? Tomorrow night, after Riley goes to bed. We'll sit down and figure this out. Figure what out? Whether we can fix this, whether we want to fix this. I nodded, though I wasn't sure what there was to fix. You can't repair something that was never properly built in the first place. Tomorrow night, I agreed. But as we walked into the house together, I couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow night was going to change everything, and not necessarily in the way either of us expected. Tuesday dragged by like a wounded animal. Danny and I made good progress on the Lakewood kitchen, but I found myself checking my phone every few minutes, dreading and anticipating the evening's conversation with equal intensity. Around 3 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is this Jack Dorsey? I stepped outside to take the call. This is Jack. Mr. Dorsey, this is Tom Mitchell from Mitchell Investigations. You visited our website last week. I had no memory of filling out a contact form, but apparently my late-night browsing had triggered some kind of automated follow-up system. I'm not sure I need your services anymore, I said. I understand. A lot of people have second thoughts. But if you don't mind me asking, what changed your mind? I found what I was looking for on my own. Ah, the hotel receipt. The words hit me like a physical blow. How did you... Mr. Dorsey, I've been doing this for 20 years. When someone visits my website at 2 in the morning and then stops responding, it usually means they found evidence they weren't prepared to find. Are you psychic, or do you just know how to read browser cookies? Neither. I'm just good at recognizing patterns. And the pattern says you're a decent man who's been trying to save a marriage that ended a long time ago. I walked to the far corner of the construction site, away from Danny and the homeowners. What makes you think that? Because you're still trying to protect her. Even now, when you know the truth, you're looking for reasons to avoid making it official. Maybe I just don't want to be the kind of person who hires private investigators to spy on his wife. Mr. Dorsey, what kind of person do you want to be? The question caught me off guard. I'm sorry? It's a simple question. When this is all over, when the dust settles and you're looking back on how you handled the worst period of your marriage, what kind of person do you want to see in the mirror? I thought about it for a long moment. Someone who fought for what mattered. Someone who didn't just roll over and accept whatever scraps people decided to throw my way. Then maybe the question isn't whether you need my services. Maybe the question is what you plan to do with the information you already have. I don't know yet. That's okay. But when you figure it out, call me. I have a feeling you're going to need documentation that will hold up in court. He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone and wondering how a stranger could read my situation so clearly when I'd been stumbling around in the dark for months. I went back to work, but Mitchell's words kept echoing in my head. What kind of person did I want to be? What did I plan to do with what I knew? By the time I got home, I still didn't have answers. But I had a plan for getting them. Vanessa was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and a stack of papers spread out in front of her. She looked up when I walked in, offering a tentative smile. How was work? Good. We're ahead of schedule. I gestured at the papers. What's all this? Financial stuff. Bank statements, investment accounts, insurance policies. I thought we should review everything before we talk tonight. I poured myself a beer and sat down across from her. The papers were organized with typical Vanessa efficiency. Color-coded folders, neat handwriting, everything in perfect order. This is thorough, I said. I wanted to be prepared. If we're going to have a serious conversation about our future, we need to know where we stand financially. And where do we stand? She took a sip of wine before answering. Better than I expected, actually. The house has appreciated significantly. Your business has been more profitable than I realized. My retirement account is in good shape. Sounds like we're in a position to make choices. Yes, we are. Riley came home around 6, grabbed a sandwich, and disappeared upstairs to do homework. Or at least that's what she claimed she was doing. For all I knew, she was live streaming our marital problems to her social media followers. Vanessa cooked dinner, pasta with marinara sauce, nothing fancy but competently prepared. We ate in relative silence, both of us clearly thinking about the conversation ahead. After dinner, Riley announced she was going to study at a friend's house and would be back by 11. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental, but I appreciated her discretion. Vanessa and I cleaned up the dishes together, moving around each other in the kitchen with the practiced efficiency of people who'd shared the same space for 15 years. It was almost comfortable, this domestic routine, and I found myself wondering if we could build a marriage on nothing but compatible housekeeping styles. Should we sit in the living room? Vanessa asked when the last plate was dried and put away. Sure. We settled on opposite ends of the sofa, the coffee table between us like a neutral zone. Vanessa had brought her wine. I'd opted for another beer. Dutch courage, my father would have called it. So, she said, here we are. Here we are. She took a deep breath. Jack, I want you to know that whatever happens tonight, I don't regret our marriage. We've had some good years. Some good years, that's one way to put it. What would you call them? I'd call them the best years of my life, right up until they stopped being good. She looked down at her wine glass. When do you think that happened? When did we stop being happy? I don't think we stopped being happy at the same time. I think one of us stopped first, and the other one just took a while to notice. Which one of us stopped first? You tell me. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I think I stopped feeling like we were partners, she said. I started feeling like we were just coexisting, going through the motions. When? I don't know exactly. Maybe when Riley started high school and didn't need us as much. Maybe when my career started taking off and yours was struggling. Maybe when we stopped talking about anything except schedules and bills. So you decided to find someone who made you feel like a partner again. The words hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa went very still. What did you say? You heard me. Jack, I don't know what you think you know, but I know about the hotel, Vanessa, the Lakewood Inn, last Tuesday night, room 237. Her face went through a series of expressions, surprise, fear, anger, and finally something that looked almost like relief. How long have you known? Since Friday. And you didn't say anything? I wanted to hear it from you. I wanted to give you the chance to tell me yourself. She set down her wineglass with shaking hands. Jack, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For the affair or for getting caught? For all of it. For letting it happen, for lying to you, for making you feel like you weren't enough. How long? 3 months? Maybe 4? With Trevor. She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. Your business partner, the guy you've been working with for 2 years, the guy you told me was harmless and not my type. It wasn't supposed to happen. We were working late, trying to close a big deal. We went for drinks afterward and... And what? You accidentally ended up in a hotel room together? It wasn't like that. What was it like? She took a shaky breath. It was like being seen again, like being appreciated, like being someone's first priority instead of their third. The words were a knife between my ribs. So this is my fault? No. Yes. I don't know. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Jack, I felt invisible in this marriage. I felt like you were just going through the motions, like I was another item on your to-do list. So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to have an affair. I didn't decide anything. It just happened. Affairs don't just happen, Vanessa. They're a series of choices. You chose to go for drinks with him. You chose to let the conversation turn personal. You chose to kiss him. You chose to get a hotel room. You chose to lie to me about working late. You're right. I made those choices, and I regret them. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you got exactly what you wanted. Someone who makes you feel like a priority, someone who appreciates you, someone who isn't your boring third-place husband. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having this conversation 4 months ago, before you decided to find comfort in someone else's bed. Fair would have been giving me the chance to fight for our marriage before you checked out of it. You can still fight for it. Can I? Because it sounds like you've already made your choice. I haven't. That's why I wanted to talk tonight. That's why I got all the financial information together. I want to know if we can fix this. Fix what exactly? The marriage or the fact that you got caught? The marriage. Our relationship. The way we've been living like strangers in the same house. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where I'd lived for 15 years. Mrs. Grady's porch light was on, and I could see her cat sitting in the window, watching the world go by with the patience of someone who'd learned not to expect too much from life. Jack? Vanessa's voice was small behind me. Say something. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me what you're thinking. I turned around to face her. I'm thinking that 3 months ago, you decided our marriage wasn't worth fighting for. I'm thinking that you found someone who made you feel special, and you chose him over me. I'm thinking that the only reason we're having this conversation is because I found out, not because you decided to come clean. That's not true, isn't it? If I hadn't found that hotel receipt, how long would you have kept lying to me? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I'm also thinking, I continued, that for the first time in years, I know exactly where I stand. I'm not wondering why you're distant, or why you don't seem interested in spending time with me, or why you look at me like I'm a stranger. Now I know. So what happens now? Now we figure out what comes next. Do you want a divorce? The question I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. The question that would determine the shape of the rest of my life. I want a marriage, I said. A real one, where both people choose each other every day. Where both people feel valued and respected and loved. Where both people are each other's first priority, not third. We could have that. Could we? Because that would mean you'd have to choose me over Trevor. It would mean you'd have to choose us over whatever it is you think you've found with him, and I'm not sure you want to make that choice. I do want to make that choice. Then make it. What do you mean? End it with Trevor, tonight. Call him right now and tell him it's over. Tell him you're going to fight for your marriage. Vanessa stared at me, her wineglass forgotten in her lap. Right now? Right now. If you want to save this marriage, if you want me to believe that you're choosing us, then choose us. Prove it. She picked up her phone with trembling hands, scrolled through her contacts, and stopped at Trevor's name. For a long moment, she just stared at the screen. Then she set the phone down. "I can't," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because I don't know if I want to." And there it was. The truth we'd been dancing around for months, maybe years. She didn't know if she wanted to choose our marriage over her affair. She didn't know if I was worth fighting for. But I finally knew what kind of person I wanted to be. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For being honest. Finally." I walked toward the stairs, then paused and looked back at her. "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow we can figure out the logistics." "Jack, wait. Can't we?" "No," I said gently. "We can't. You made your choice, Vanessa. Now I get to make mine." I went upstairs, leaving her alone in the living room with her wine and her regrets and the phone call she couldn't bring herself to make. For the first time in months, I slept soundly. I woke up Wednesday morning with the kind of clarity that comes after a storm passes. The guest room was smaller than our bedroom, the mattress firmer, but I'd slept better than I had in weeks. There's something to be said for knowing exactly where you stand, even when where you stand is on shifting ground. Vanessa was already gone when I came downstairs, her coffee mug in the sink and a note on the counter. "Taking some time to think. We'll talk tonight. V." Riley sat at the breakfast bar, scrolling through her phone while eating cereal. She looked up when I entered, studying my face with the intensity of someone trying to read tea leaves. "So," she said, "how bad is it?" "What makes you think it's bad?" "Dad, you slept in the guest room. Mom left for work at 6:30 without saying goodbye to anyone, and you both look like someone ran over your dog." I poured coffee and sat down beside her. "It's pretty bad. Are you getting divorced?" "I don't know yet. Maybe." "Because of what I said? About you being third place?" "No, kiddo. Because of choices your mother and I made long before that conversation." Riley set down her spoon. "I'm sorry I said that. I was angry about something stupid, and I took it out on you." "What were you angry about?" "Mom missed my soccer game last week. Again. She promised she'd be there, and then she texted me 5 minutes before it started to say she had to show a house." "I was there." "I know. You're always there. That's what made it so stupid for me to say you were third place. You're not third place, Dad. You're the only one who shows up." The words hit me harder than any accusation could have. "Your mother loves you, Riley. She's just been distracted lately." "By work?" I met her eyes, seeing too much adult understanding in her 17-year-old face. "By a lot of things." "Is she having an affair?" The directness of the question shouldn't have surprised me. Riley was smart, observant, and old enough to recognize the signs I'd been trying to ignore. "What makes you ask that?" "She's been different for months. Secretive, always on her phone, working late all the time, but never talking about what she's working on. And she's been, I don't know, happier? Like she has some secret that makes her feel good about herself." "How do you feel about that possibility?" Riley considered the question seriously. "Angry, disappointed, but not surprised." "Why not surprised?" "Because she's been checking out of this family for a while now. I just thought it was because she was bored with us, not because she found someone more interesting." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "Riley, whatever happens between your mother and me, it's not because of anything you did or didn't do, and it doesn't mean either of us loves you any less." "I know, but it still sucks." "Yeah, it does." She finished her cereal and grabbed her backpack. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Whatever you decide to do, I hope you don't let her walk all over you anymore." "What do you mean?" "I mean you're a good man, and you deserve better than being someone's backup plan." She kissed my forehead and headed for the door, leaving me alone with my coffee and the weight of her words. My phone rang as I was getting ready for work, Danny's name on the screen. "Morning," I said. "Morning. You sound different." "Different how?" "I don't know. Calmer, maybe? Less like a man who's been holding his breath for 6 months." "Funny you should say that. I had a conversation with Vanessa last night." "How'd that go?" "About as well as you'd expect. She confirmed what we both already knew." "The affair?" "The affair. With her business partner, Trevor. Going on for 3 or 4 months." Danny was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry, man. That sucks." "Actually, it doesn't. Not anymore. The not knowing sucked. The wondering if I was losing my mind sucked. The lying awake at night trying to figure out what I'd done wrong sucked. But knowing is almost a relief." "So, what's the plan?" "I don't have one yet, but I'm working on it." "Well, whatever you decide, you know I've got your back." I know, thanks. You coming to work today? Because if you need some time, I'm coming. Work is about the only thing keeping me sane right now. Good, because Jessica wants to show the kitchen to her sister today, and I could use your help talking her out of changing the cabinet hardware for the third time. I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had in days. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The Lakewood job was exactly what I needed. Physical work that required focus and skill, clients who appreciated quality craftsmanship, and the satisfaction of building something that would outlast whatever chaos was happening in my personal life. Jessica did indeed want to change the cabinet hardware, and Danny and I spent an hour explaining why her original choice was better than the alternatives she'd found online. By the time we'd convinced her to stick with the plan, I felt more like myself than I had in weeks. During lunch, I called Tom Mitchell. "Mr. Dorsey," he said, "I was hoping I'd hear from you. I think I need your services after all." "What changed your mind?" "My wife had the chance to end her affair last night. She chose not to." "I see. And now you want documentation?" "I want to know everything. How long it's been going on, where they meet, whether there are others. I want to know what I'm dealing with before I make any permanent decisions." "That's smart. A lot of people make emotional decisions based on incomplete information, and they regret it later." "How long will it take?" "For a basic adultery investigation? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Depends on how careful they're being." "They're not being very careful, at least they weren't." "They will be now. Your conversation last night probably spooked them, but don't worry. People having affairs think they're smarter than they actually are." "What do you need from me?" "Photos, schedules, phone numbers, license plates, anything that helps me track their movements." "And Mr. Dorsey?" "Yeah?" "Try not to do anything that might compromise the investigation. No confrontations, no following them yourself, no checking her phone. Let me handle the surveillance." "Understood." "One more thing. Are you sure you want to know everything? Sometimes the details are harder to live with than the basic facts." I thought about it for a moment. "I'm sure. I've been living with suspicion and uncertainty for months. Whatever the truth is, it can't be worse than that." "Okay. I'll send you a contract and a list of what I need to get started." "How much is this going to cost?" "For what you're asking, probably around $3,000. It was a lot of money, but I had the savings from jobs like this one, money I'd been setting aside for emergencies. I suppose this qualified. Send me the contract." I spent the afternoon installing cabinet doors and drawer fronts, work that was precise and methodical and completely absorbing. By the time Danny and I packed up our tools, I felt like I'd accomplished something meaningful. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "Can we talk when you get home?" I texted back, "I'll be there by 6. The house felt different when I walked in, though I couldn't put my finger on what had changed. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I was seeing our home through different eyes, noticing things I'd been blind to before. Vanessa was in the kitchen, opening a bottle of wine with movements that were a little too careful, a little too controlled. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, but she still looked like she was dressed for a business meeting. "How was your day?" she asked without looking up. "Good. Productive. Yours?" "Long. I had a lot of thinking to do." "And what did you conclude?" She poured wine into 2 glasses, though I hadn't asked for any. "I concluded that I've made a mess of everything." "That's a start." "Jack, I want to fix this. I want to fix us." "How?" "I'm going to end it with Trevor, tonight. I should have done it last night, but I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of losing him. Scared of being alone. Scared of finding out that what we have isn't worth saving. And now? Now I'm more scared of losing you." She handed me the wine glass, and I accepted it without drinking. "What changed your mind?" "I spent the day thinking about what my life would look like without you, without us, and I realized that whatever I think I have with Trevor, it's not real. It's not a life. It's just an escape from the life I already have." "An escape from me, you mean?" "An escape from feeling like I'd failed at the most important thing I'd ever tried to do." "Marriage?" "Being your wife, being Riley's mother, being part of something bigger than myself." I leaned against the kitchen counter, studying her face. She looked tired and sad and younger than she had in years. "Vanessa, I need you to understand something. If we're going to try to fix this, it can't be because you're scared of being alone. It has to be because you want to be married to me specifically, not just married in general." "I do want to be married to you." "Why?" "Because you're a good man. Because you've been faithful and patient and kind, even when I didn't deserve it. Because you show up. Because you keep your promises. Because you make me want to be better than I am." "Those are all true. But they're also the reasons you should have wanted to stay married to me 4 months ago. What's different now? She was quiet for a long moment, swirling wine in her glass without drinking it. Now I know what it feels like to lose you, she said finally. And I know I don't want to live without you. But you were willing to live without me when you thought I didn't know about Trevor. That's different. How? Because then I thought I could have both. I thought I could keep our life together and still have this other thing that made me feel special. And now you know you can't. Now I know I don't want to. I set down my wine glass without tasting it. Vanessa, I need you to call Trevor, right now, while I'm standing here. I need to hear you end it. Okay. She picked up her phone with steady hands this time, scrolled to Trevor's number, and hit call. I could hear it ringing through the speaker. Vanessa? Trevor's voice was smooth and confident, the voice of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. Trevor, I can't see you anymore. What? Why? What happened? Jack knows about us, and I've decided I want to try to save my marriage. There was a long pause. You're choosing him over me? I'm choosing my family over an affair. It's not just an affair, Vanessa. What we have is real. What we have is complicated, and I can't do complicated anymore. This is a mistake. You know that, right? You know you're settling for someone who doesn't appreciate you? I watched Vanessa's face as she listened to Trevor's words. For a moment, I thought she might waver. Then her expression hardened. Trevor, it's over. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't come by the office when I'm there. If we have to work together, we'll keep it professional. But this other thing, whatever it was, is finished. Vanessa, she hung up and set the phone on the counter between us. There, she said. It's done. How do you feel? Terrible, relieved, scared, like I just jumped off a cliff without knowing if there's water at the bottom. There's water, I said, but it's going to be cold for a while. I know. We stood in the kitchen as the sun set outside our windows, two people who'd been married for 15 years trying to figure out if they still knew each other. What happens now? Vanessa asked. Now we see if we can build something worth saving. Do you think we can? I don't know, but I'm willing to try if you are. I am. Then we start tomorrow. Fresh slate, new rules, complete honesty. What kind of new rules? No secrets, no lies, no taking each other for granted, and no more putting other people's needs ahead of our marriage. Including my family? Including your family, she nodded slowly. That's going to be hard. Most worthwhile things are. Riley came home an hour later to find us cooking dinner together, something we hadn't done in months. She looked back and forth between us, clearly trying to read the situation. Everything okay? She asked carefully. We're working on it, Vanessa said. Good, because I was getting tired of being the only functional person in this family. And for the first time in a long time, we all laughed together. But even as I went to sleep that night in our bed instead of the guest room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. Vanessa had made her choice, and I'd made mine. Whether those choices would be enough to save our marriage remained to be seen. What I did know was that I was done being anyone's third priority. From now on, I was going to be the kind of man who fought for what mattered and walked away from what didn't. The question was, which category would our marriage ultimately fall into?